Ranked Deathmatch takes all of the good mechanical practice that the non-ranked mode used to give, but turns it up to 11. It really puts you to the test and humbles you to how good you actually are. I know this because I've gone through this process, and wow, using this mode for practice makes regular Deathmatch look like shooting the training bots. Playing Deathmatch with rankings involved and always putting you among peers can help you really strive to look at where there are gaps in your game. Now, we're going to talk about the best heroes to think about for ranked deathmatch, but also I know that a lot of people are confused on how the ranking system works, so I'm going to clear that up first and then get into sort of the hero meta across these different skill tiers, because it's actually quite interesting. And no, you don't just see Moira orb spam at the top ends. Actually, you see McCree, who's the best hero overall if you're good enough with him, but there's sort of a interesting gradient and multiple meta problem that's going throughout the ranks. First and foremost, I think a lot of people were confused when a bunch of streamers placed in the mode in the first day, and because the mode didn't have any data to compare the wins that these players were getting and more or less were beating unranked players, it sort of capped out where they could get placed around Diamond, and due to that, right now the skill rating ceiling is actually quite low until more people file into the mode, keep playing, and over time the ELO system kind of spreads out these players and really will start to differentiate them in bigger gaps of SR number. And the way it works out, some of the best players in the world are around Masters level with a bit more time and more data. Since I did my placements a little bit later, the placement system was allowed to work correctly, and as I started to win at the medium ranks, it started challenging me with higher and higher ranked opposition until I was playing against some of those pro players and Masters that I'm talking about. And then when I didn't win in those lobbies during my placements, it said, okay, you're obviously a tier below that, and I ended up hovering around Diamond myself. However, I'd say I wouldn't look too much into the rank that you're playing at all. Don't worry about that. Instead, use the mode for what it's for, mechanical practice. As I hear, I think a lot of players that play in the medium or lower ranks feel that characters like Roadhog, Brigitte, Moira, Reaper are the be-all end-all of the deathmatch mode because they so reliably win duels if the enemy doesn't outplay you. The interesting thing about that is, as you go up the skill tiers, you can't really get away with some of these characters that can get outplayed. The reason being is that most of those characters I mentioned have a output cap on them. You can't get headshots with Moira. Reaper and Brigitte do nothing unless your opponent is right next to you. Most of their value comes down to their cooldowns. However, when you start tossing in the Tracer, Genji, Soldier, Widowmaker, Hanzo, Doomfist, etc., those types of characters that have the mobility and aim in order to outplay some of these characters, there starts to become a serious skill gap in the output that you can get. And that's kind of an interesting phenomenon that's occurred and a learning process that I went through as I started to rank up. My first few games were quite easy, and in my first one I got called a hacker because I was playing against probably plat level ranked players, if I had to guess, whose aim and movement are quite average, allowing me to quite reliably outplay them. Whereas like in this clip, I go up against the pro DPS player from Gladiator's Legion, Blase, and even with my relatively overpowered Storm bow ready and waiting, he's able to 180 and 2-tap me like it's nothing. And that's where the rubber hits the road with this mode. You might think that you're going to succeed going in with some really strong heroes, but really it's much more about the mechanical input that you put in order to get more value out. And as you start to play up against better and better players, the problem is they can mechanically outplay any hero, and if you play a character that has a very limited cap, you're just going to struggle to keep up with the amount of kills they can get and the speed that they get them. Because remember, in Deathmatch, it's the first to 20 game ends. It's not about surviving the longest. It's not even about necessarily winning 1v1s, which is nice and an important part of the mode, but there definitely is a viable playstyle to Tracer and Genji just coming through and kill stealing. I like to call it vulturing. Makes it sound a bit more legit, but kill stealing in duels that are in progress. So when we start to evaluate what heroes are really good in this mode, it comes down to that. At the lower ranks, you can toss all sorts of cheese at things, but at the higher ranks, you have to consider a few important parameters in order for you to succeed. And your skill, of course, is number one. Whatever heroes are at the top of your hero pool are the ones you're going to have to play with. But more importantly, how you play them is what we're going to break down now. McCree overall is the be-all end-all in this mode because he's good at all of the different aspects of what you need played in Deathmatch. The maps that we have, despite Petra seeming like it's pretty big, you can avoid long lines of sight, and as long as McCree isn't getting in long-range duels, and he doesn't really need to ever, from medium to close range, he is god tier if you can hit the zippy flanker characters, who are probably next up in the list. On screen, I showed a incredible streak that IDDQD went on. He's currently on the San Francisco Shock and a Twitch streamer. Be sure to check him out. I'm not that good at McCree, but this is the kind of tear that you can go on when you're at that upper percentile of McCree players. I personally am a big fan of Soldier in this mode. I think he has a advantage over McCree's at my level, but as soon as I start to reach those god tier McCree's, they can hit Soldier's bobbling head like it ain't no thing, so that starts to drop off for me. Also, up against the flanker characters, I have to keep my distance, which can be quite hard, especially against Doomfist, who just wants to target you all of the time. If you are able to hit your Helix rocket in duels, Soldier can look just as good as McCree in my opinion, but if you had to choose one to be good at, you should pick McCree for this mode. Unfortunately, I am not as good at McCree as I am at Soldier, so I don't have that option. I've already mentioned the really strong mobility DPS. Tracer, Genji, and Doomfist are all as good as you are with them in this mode. Because really, you think McCree has a flashbang, but they all have cooldowns that are going to be able to play around it. And in the chaos of Deathmatch, where there's a lot of fighting going on, if you can get in and out of the fight as you will, and win your 1v1s, you can really take over the game. And especially on Chateau, I've noticed, at least at the higher ranks, everyone's just like speed running the Deathmatch mode with Tracer, and you can try to keep up by playing one of the cheesy characters, Roadhog, Moira, Brigida, who might get some free kills on her. But again, it's not about having a good KD for yourself. You need to try to keep up with the top 4 players in the lobby, which could be quite a big ask. The biggest characters I'd say to look away from and don't play, unless you just want to practice them in a difficult environment, are Pharah and Junkrat. Their projectiles are slow, and they're not really built to deal with these hectic deathmatch scenarios. If someone else is running Pharah, you can practice your mid-airs. I love doing that. But hit scans are so good, mobility characters are so good, unless they decide to fight you and allow you to go take a duel with them, a lot of times they can just avoid you, and you can struggle to keep up with the pace of kills that other characters are getting, and you got to get in that top 4 to win. Even lower on the tier list than them, of course, are tank and support characters that we all know are built to get value in the team environment, so the bubbles and the barriers of the tanks don't really do a whole lot. You can kind of try to play Diva and Winston in a kill-stealing way to try to jump in on duels that are in progress, and sometimes you can get away with that, but more than likely somebody's going to go Reaper and really ruin your day, or play Roadhog, who's good anyway against the DPSs as well. He's the one tank that actually I think holds some value up until the higher ranks as well, because he is just kind of unkillable. And unlike some of the other cheesy characters, he actually has a mechanical outplay. If he lands his hook, you're pretty much dead. And that one skill shot kind of puts him over the edge to be good at all levels of play, in my opinion. Widowmaker and Hanzo will be good as far as your aim is, but often, of course, these characters don't want straight-up confrontation. They'd much rather be fighting off in the distance, and Deathmatch players aren't going to let you do that. So if you can indeed hit headshots on Moiras and Tracers and other obnoxious things that are going to get in your face, you can see some success, but they're just a little less suited for the mode than McCree, even though they have a big range advantage against McCree, which is one nice thing about picking them. If you are able to stay at far distance, yeah, you can pick off kills to your heart's delight, but the good Tracer and Genji players are really going to make your life difficult. Any of the characters I haven't mentioned yet, Mei, Torb, Sim, Ana, Lucio, are kind of just weaker versions of other characters that are going to succeed at the same playstyle, at least for the purposes of this mode. But if you want to play them just to practice your mechanics, great place to do it. In fact, I'd say I'm loving Ranked Deathmatch, and I kind of hope that they replace it with normal deathmatch, because this is so much more difficult, which is a good thing. I actually feel challenged when I play this mode because I'm amongst peers that are going to push me to be better, and I'm going to be honest, I'm probably never going to be as good as the top 500 players that are in Masters right now, but at least I can aspire to try to get better and actually have some real resistance when I hop into a DM to warm up, whereas normally it's a bit too easy, to be honest, which maybe I didn't realize as much as I should have when I played normal DM. But in any case, playing in Ranked DM really brought me back down to earth to remember how good I'm not and how much farther I have to go as a player. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, because we upload each and every day, so you don't want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.